Sarah, DeAndre Hopkins is on the other side of 30 at this
Mm-hmm.
point. And I think the discussions surrounding him are valid and are fair. How much does he have left in the tank? Apparently, he hears these discussions, or at least some of them. Maybe he sees, hears the noise, is passed along the noise about him, because he clapped back at some of the critics out there with an Instagram story that, if you look closely, has D-Hop up there with some young guns in Baltimore on the second day of Ravens OTAs. Take a look. 20
So wait.
flat.
Wait. Hold on. You got to describe what this TV screen is.
Oh, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting there.
Well, you got the results before we know what it is.
I'm teasing everybody a little bit, aren't I? But
I should get away. I should not get in your way. You've been doing radio for a minute and TV. You do your thing. Go.
Out the way. Look at the players, first of all, that are above and below him, meaning within the range of what DeAndre Hopkins was running speed and quickness-wise yesterday. There's a bunch of rookies or second-year players on this list, or players that are just straight-up speedy that he surpassed, like a Keaton Mitchell, for the audio-only audience and to satisfy my partner.
Please.
This is an Instagram story screenshot from D-Hop's official account with a leaderboard from the 28th of May that marks the fastest OTA players. Okay? Marquise Robinson, an undrafted rookie, a defensive back, led the way at 20.2 miles an hour. Devontae Walker and DeAndre Hopkins, Sarah, tied for the second fastest, essentially, ability at the second day of Ravens OTA. So we're talking about a second-year player who's fresh out of school, who's what, 23, 24, somewhere around there?
Mm-hmm.
DeAndre Hopkins, who's been in this league for over a decade, he and Tez both clocked at 20 flat. That means that D-Hop bested LaJohntay Wester, Zay Flowers, Keaton Mitchell, Malachi Starks, and you see the other names on that board. The caption, "I'm old and can't run," with a shh emoji, as if he's speaking directly to his doubters. I kind of loved it from the old man in the room.
Okay, well, I have questions. Is this just like their fastest speed of like the day? Is that how this works? Or is this like an average of, their routes or something like that? I don't know. It's got to be the fastest of the day, right?
I was going to say that we'll have to
their top speed.
Dig a little deeper. If it's anything like next gen stats,
yeah.
I would think it's the latter. It's their top speed.
Right.
It's when they're clocked at their highest peak performance.
Right.
What did Derek hit last year? 22? Why do I feel like he hit like somewhere in the 22 range on that? And you know what it was? It was the 80-plus yarder to the house, I'm pretty sure, against the Bills.
The Bills in week 4.
I'm pretty sure. So anyway, if nothing else, it's an impressive display of athleticism that he apparently still seemingly has. Yes, he may not separate the way that he once used to.
Well, and he never was even a big separator his whole career. Like
sure.
that. You know what I mean? He's a big body, contested catch receiver. I'm sure he's not as fast as he used to be, but it's not like he was like Keaton Mitchell, Zay Flowers type speedster coming out.
Yeah, you're right. Nor was he asked to be as the big body contested catch winning guy, right?
Right.
And so, again, I like a couple different things here. One, the athleticism display. You like that, obviously. But two, I kind of like the OG mindset he's taking right now. Like you've seen similar from Kyle Van. Oh yeah. Oh, you want to doubt me?
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to end well for anybody that's doubting me and sending critiques my way. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to use that as fuel, and I'm going to go ahead and prove you guys wrong. So, D-Hop.
Yeah, listen, it's hard not to like him. Here's some of his highlights from day one when they were still outside. Just, incredible get off, knows how to like rip the hands away, knows how to go get open. So this is day 2. And I imagine he's just having a blast right now. It's like the first week of school for him. He's meeting, he's reuniting with old friends. He's meeting Lamar Jackson. I know he's coming from the Chiefs. And by the way, just to put this out there, just because we don't watch as much, he did drop a pretty big pass in the playoffs from Patrick Mahomes this last year. And so But I bring that up because it's like he fits right in with being completely unsatisfied and wanting to redeem himself with the rest of this team, right? So many players from Baltimore are returning with just complete fuel and motivation to stop finishing where they know they shouldn't finish, in Odafe words. And so he's right there with them. He's right there with them because he didn't finish the way he wanted to finish. He thought he might be able to go get his ring with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and he didn't play the way he's capable of doing so. So then, but again, coming back, it's like the first day of school and you're reuniting with Derrick Henry. You already knew Lamar Jackson. You knew that you were cool with him. Sounds like his personality fits in and with being funny. Like there's what's there not to like about DeAndre Hopkins? And so John Harbaugh was asked about expectations. We had this conversation yesterday, Bobby. John Harbaugh is on the exact same page as you and I, or we're on the same page as him, however we want to put it. But when he was asked about expectations, he said, well, first of all, he's a heck of a football player. You saw him today. He's a gifted guy, but he's going to be a big body contested catch receiver for us. Certainly. He's moving great. Plus he brings all the experience. He's been in the big game. He's made big plays in the big games. He's not going to be in any situation that's too big for him. I just thought he and Lamar looked really good out there today. Looked good out there together. It was nice to see, close quote. So, this goes back to some of the super chats we just had. I don't know that it's so much that I don't believe in DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, of course, he's not the all-pro that he was. To me, it's the same thing I say about all of these guys. It's going to be hard for anybody to completely dominate because there's so many weapons on this offense, starting with Lamar, going then to Derrick Henry, talking about the two tight ends in Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, where there's already, from our point of view, a competition about who's going to be tight end one, because both are certainly capable. And then you've got these three wide receivers. Justice Hill's back there. Keaton Mitchell's back there. We're talking about Devontae Walker. It's like not all these guys can get the ball. And so instead, everybody's going to have to play a role, and they need to do their job. Over at the Ravens facility, I love it. They have sayings up all over the facility. My favorite, especially when we converted I think it was the linebackers room into our draft room when we covered the draft. It was just huge up there, a big banner that says, do your job. And that's what it's going to have to be. Todd Monken's going to be like, what does everybody do best? And I'm going to maximize what they do best because I have an embarrassment of riches in terms of weapons. And so to me, it's less about what I think Hopkins can do and more about having Monken become this mad scientist and making sure that he just moves the ball around, because that's when the offense will be at its best.
It's a good problem to have, and I'm sure the alternative is not something that he'd be interested in, but Todd's got it tough. Todd's got a lot of guys to keep, one, involved, two, content, happy, productive, so on and so forth. But again, a really good problem to have. And to use your phrase, which I think is perfect, it's an embarrassment of riches all up and down the offensive side of the ball. And one of those players that's coming back, that's absolutely a part of that riches and has been for quite some time, and is a draft classmate of Lamar Jackson. That's Mark Andrews. He spoke, Sarah, for the first time in a press conference setting environment since that divisional round loss. And of course, we all remember his game in Buffalo. Now, remember, he released a statement through Instagram in the days that followed that loss and the drop and the fumble. Then within the last month or so, he spoke to ESPN.com, released a few pieces of words through that as well. We covered
at some event, right? It was like was it an event for diabetes or something like that?
Don't remember, but that would fit the bill.
It was just one reporter.
Don't remember it specifically, but that would fit the bill. Clearly, he's been a huge advocate within the diabetes community as a diabetic himself. I mean, it's a tremendous story. But this was the first time where local reporters had a chance to really go question for question with him. And here's part of what he had to say. Of course, you transcribed this yesterday on X. It's tough, he said. This is my life. I put a lot of work into this. Everything I do and think about is focused on that. So it wasn't the way that I planned it, but that's all part of the story. I've been using it as fuel. I had an incredible offseason. I'm excited to show what I can continue to do and continue to improve myself and step up in big moments. It doesn't always go your way, but it's how you bounce back. There was a follow-up question added in. What has he done to move past his fumble and drop 2-point conversion? And Mark said, I surrounded myself with good people and didn't look at the outside noise. Look myself in the mirror and know the type of player I am, know the type of work I put in. As a professional, it's about being able to move past it, but storing that in the memory bank, understanding that this is not the end. This is something I'm going to work with, get better, improve, and move on. We'll talk about his contractual future in just a bit because that was another piece of the press conference. You have been on record for sharing throughout the course of this offseason that you were disappointed to have not heard from him in this type of setting until now. Your thoughts on how he handled it yesterday?
I thought he was perfect yesterday. I liked everything he said. I mean, he was transparent about how tough it's been. He was asked again about who he leaned on. He talked about his girlfriend, which I thought was sweet, and how she's been there for him through ups and downs. He talks about his extended family. He talks about, man, when the whole world's against you, it's nice to go to his nieces and nephews to just put a smile on his face. He talked about leaning into Jesus and to God, and he just kept saying he had an amazing support system. And when you there's nothing to me, Bobby, that's worse than regret and guilt. Those two things, it's good that we have those emotions because it motivates us to do better. But when you're in the thick of it, I'll just tell you, like, I never feel worse than when I feel guilty. Guilty about about something I know that I'm better than what I showed, and I fell short, or I saw somehow maybe even if it's unintentional, you accidentally hurt somebody. Like, there's nothing worse than that. And one of his worst career moments was in front of the entire country. And so I like how he's sitting here and saying that he's looking forward to the opportunity to show that he can continue to improve himself. And that was my favorite line. I want to continue to improve myself and step up in big moments, because I've been saying since the divisional loss that, I wasn't gunning for him to be traded, although we covered it a lot because of the way Eric DeCosta did. He obviously was shopping him. But my two things was, I'd prefer to call somebody else's number in big moments. And I would like to see Isaiah Likely get more tight end one snaps, more looks right away. And so, but he can't control that. All he can control is if his number is called upon in big moments, he wants to improve himself and step up in big moments. So everything he said yesterday was perfect. It's easier said than done, but it would have been more perfect had he said it either the Sunday after the loss or the next day on Monday. You know what I mean? It's easier to do it when you've had some time to think about it. Somebody responded to me on Twitter when I transcribed all this. He said, I'm sick of hearing about this. Why does the media have to keep talking about it? Or why does the media keep asking him about it? Why do they keep asking him about it? And I was like, now hold on a second. Don't get mad at the media. This is the way Mark decided to approach it. Okay? Mark decided, if Mark could talk to them just like this in front of a whole group setting back in January, then this wouldn't have lingered as long as it has. We predicted it back then. We said it's just going to keep lingering until he does a full press conference with all media members. Why? Well, because for us, we're content creators and we will pull in stories from anywhere. But traditional journalism is, the Baltimore Sun has to get their own sources. The Athletic has to get their own sources. ESPN has to get their own sources. Like, all these outlets have to get their own sources. They have to ask their own questions. They're not just going to take it from somebody else. That's not traditional journalism. And so don't get mad at the journalists for asking questions. They've actually been patiently waiting for 4 months. Okay. This has been a slow drip of information because he chose to not talk to the media, then go the IG route, and then talk to one reporter, what I think was at this event. And so while to to some of the fans that are following, it feels like a lot, but the reporters weren't able to. And so this is what we predicted. If you weren't going to say something right away, then it was going to just linger. And then every time one reporter talks to you, they're going to ask you the same thing. Whereas if you just talk to everybody all at once, you cut it off and it's done. So I like everything he said. It would have been better if he tried to do it in February. And I also think it would have been better if he didn't talk about, when he talked to ESPN, about the wet gloves and all that kind of stuff. However, listen, at this point forward, he's done his press conference. He's done it. The questions can now trail off and we can turn the page and we can see if he does indeed have redemption. I want nothing more than redemption for him. That's what I want. That's what I want. If I were the coach, I'd still call on Isaiah Likely a little bit more. But as a person and as a player and as a good guy, I'd love for him to have redemption.
Unfortunately for him, I think this is going to continue to follow him. If they get back to the postseason and Mark's in a press conference setting, a reporter is going to figure out one way or another to ask that question. Mm-hmm. And so while it wouldn't have lingered the way that it did and the way that we predicted it would throughout the course of this offseason, I still am a believer that if he addressed it when so many wanted him to in the aftermath, the direct aftermath of one of the biggest mistakes of his career, that there still would be a way for it to have been woven into yesterday's press conference. I really do believe that. But would it have lingered?
Maybe not to this point. And I don't think everybody.
The follow-up would have happened.
Yes.
The follow-up.
How have you been since then? You know what I mean?
It would have been an easy follow-up, but of course, it would not have lingered to the extent of national types of storylines at one point early in the process that Mark has gone silent the way that it did. So that's one component of Mark yesterday. The other, of course, is the elephant in the room. The fact that his future is uncertain after the 2025 season. And he was asked if he hopes for an extension as he enters this final season under contract. The transcription, it's not for me to deal with that. I thought Eric had a great way of saying it. He's in the business of keeping great players. So he's letting everybody know he's been paying attention to EDC's thoughts this offseason.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a great player. I think I've been able to do it at the highest level, the best of the best for a long time. And I'm not slowing down. He snuck that in there. I'm extremely excited to be here. This is an incredible organization. I'm grateful to be here for my 8th year. What more could you this is like a carbon copy response of how you're supposed to handle this if you're Mark. I thought he nailed the first part of it in terms of everything that took place and everything that was going to be asked and that needed to be asked. And I thought this was a pretty darn good job as well, a stand-up answer.
Yeah, I thought it was a great answer. Isaiah Likely was also asked about contract because they're both going into their final year of their contracts. It's like literally side by side. And Isaiah Likely also answered it, well. He's just like, well, all I got to do is work, and then I'll let my agent take care of the rest, basically, So, but I like that Mark, is speaking confidence, right? I know I'm a great player, all that kind of stuff. Now, in reality, Bobby, I think we both have the same prediction. I think Isaiah Likely is going to get a new contract. I think it's unlikely that Mark Andrews does unless he decides he wants to come back for cheap and just wants to retire a Raven, right? Like in that circumstance, maybe they could do it. But in terms of like the next big contract, the next big tight end one, Isaiah Likely is the next in line. And if he continues his trajectory that he's shown so far in his first 3 years, it will be Isaiah Likely with the next big contract.
And he's also somebody that just constantly shows how beloved of a teammate he is. He was asked about Mark Andrews. He calls him Big Brother. He said he wanted to give Mark a big hug when he stepped on the practice field yesterday. Again, that's Wednesday, the 28th. And Jonas notes here that Likely's happy the speculation over his short-term future is over. They have a close bond, as close as you could be, Sarah, when you are literally competing. And I should say it's as close seemingly, right? From our vantage point, what we have to gather through press conference settings, body language, overall relationship.
Yeah.
It sure seems like it's as good of a relationship as you can possibly have when you are literally competing for reps. And if you're Isaiah, Mark is the one player that's standing in front of you for the last several years under your rookie contract. That's really, in a sense, I mean, it's weird to say this, but that is holding Isaiah back. It's been Mark and his presence, which he has earned, and his role in Baltimore, which he has earned. But I would argue that that's held Isaiah back. And for him to keep this type of mantra, to be so team friendly all the time and never allow, if those frustrations do exist, to be perceived or to show at all.
At all.
It's tremendous. It's an absolute tremendous display of emotional intelligence, confidence, and the way that you're supposed to handle yourself as a pro in front of a microphone. It's exceptional.
If you're trying to hide a poor relationship, there's just not one. You don't start calling him big brother if you don't really believe it. Like, that's my big brother. Or where he comes out and gives Mark Andrews a hug. And by the way, I was reading Jeff Zrebiec talking, his story about Mark Andrews. Literally, he said the very first pass that Lamar Jackson threw, who was it to? Mark Andrews. He was like, it's almost like nothing even happened, right? Like, didn't skip a beat, whatever, right back to Mark Andrews. And so I do get the sense that his teammates are all rallying around him, which I really appreciate. Isaiah likely calling him big brother. Isaiah likely wanting to give him a hug when he comes out. Him saying, I'm so glad the speculation is over. Although it's not, but it can be quieted until, the end of the season again. And then Lamar Jackson throwing him, the first pass of the first practice. So you can't hate on any of that, and you certainly can't hate on this. I loved this answer from Isaiah Likely when he was asked about his chemistry. We know the chemistry for years that Lamar and Mark has had. We've seen it with Isaiah too, but I love hearing Isaiah's mentality when Lamar throws him a pass.
One of the guys that Lamar really trusts in these scramble drill situations. I mean, how much do you expect that to continue to uptake, and how much do you kind of thrive on those types of moments too?
Man, I love those type of moments because in my mind, it's either my ball or nobody's when, the quarterback trusts you to put yourself in a position to, make those type of spectacular plays. And with L, the play's never dead till the whistle blows. So really just being able to either throw my hand, run across the field, wherever, just having him be able to trust me to throw the ball wherever I am and understand that Zay's going to always make.
Yeah, it's hard not to love that mentality, Sarah.
Yeah.
And I think John Harbaugh, his head coach, certainly hears it as well because he's skyrocketing his expectations. He's putting his expectations up on the moon. And it's not unusual for him to speak lofty in a press conference setting this time of year. But he was asked, Harbs was, what he'd like to see from Big Zay this upcoming season. Quote, I'd like to see him be an all-pro. That's my goal for him. He's capable of it. So you love the dog mentality. You love the team-friendly type of mindset that he takes through the media. You love the productiveness. Obviously, there's been a ton of productivity. There's been a ton of rapport that's been built up with Lamar over the years. And now he's going to get, obviously, another chance to put his best foot forward in a contract year where, sure, is he going to be sort of a 1,000-yard receiver? Not, you would think, not unless something goes terribly wrong with an injury within that room. But that doesn't mean that he still can't prove himself of being more than extension eligible in what's going to be a pivotal year for Big 80 out there.